nearlydanish.com.
The year is 1500. Denmark stands united under the cross. From the fishing villages of Jutland to the merchant docks of Copenhagen, the Catholic Church is the kingdom's unshakable pillar. Every village has its parish. Every Sunday, bells call the faithful to worship beneath painted ceilings and flickering candlelight. Latin hymns echo in stone halls, incomprehensible to most yet heavy with sacred authority. The Pope's word, sent from Rome, flows through bishops, priests, and abbots to every corner of the realm. The Church is not merely spiritual. It is the wealthiest landowner in Denmark. Monasteries control fertile estates. Bishops hold power equal to great nobles. Yet beneath this apparent harmony, pressure builds. Across Europe, voices rise against the sale of indulgences, slips of parchment granting remission of sins in exchange for silver. Merchants resent Rome draining wealth from northern kingdoms. Peasants groan under tithes. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the door of Wittenberg's castle church, denouncing indulgences and calling for reform. One of the texts goes, "The time is coming when the Pope's crown will fall, and kings will wear it instead." Anonymous pamphlet, circa 1519. The Catholic Church believes itself unassailable. In Denmark, it is unquestioned. But within a single generation, its authority will be shattered. Luther's teaching spread with the speed of ink and the press. By the 1520s, his writings reached Danish shores. A key messenger is Hans Tausen, 1494 to 1561, a priest from Funen, trained in the Order of St. John. Sent to study abroad, he visits Wittenberg and hears Luther preach. It changes him forever. Returning to Denmark, Tausen settles in Viborg, where he dares to preach in Danish, a radical break from centuries of Latin. His sermons are incendiary. Christ alone saves, not the Pope, not indulgences, not the gold in the Church's coffers. Faith is the path to heaven, and faith cannot be bought. In 1525, Catholic authorities placed Tausen under house arrest in a monastery. But the people rise in his defense, demanding his freedom. The authorities yield, a sign that Rome's grip is weakening. By the late 1520s, riots against Catholic symbols erupted in Copenhagen and Viborg. Monasteries are threatened, saints' images defaced. Meanwhile, in 1523, a major political shock hits the Nordic region. Sweden, after years of struggle, breaks away from the Kalmar Union, ending over a century of united rule under one monarch. Denmark retains Norway, but the union is shattered forever. These shifts, one religious, one political, set the stage for open conflict. In 1533, King Frederick I died. Though he had tolerated Lutheran preaching, his death left the throne contested. Catholic nobles seek a monarch who will restore papal authority. Protestant forces rally behind Prince Christian of Schleswig-Holstein, a staunch Lutheran who will become Christian III. The struggle turns to war, the Count's Feud, Graven's Fide, from 1534 to 1536. It is both a civil war and a battle for Denmark's soul. Catholic armies, led by Count Christopher of Oldenburg, besiege Copenhagen in the name of the exiled Christian II. Protestant troops, backed by North German allies, fight to secure Christian III's claim. Battles rage across Jutland, Funen, and Zealand. Civilians are caught in the middle, towns looted, peasants conscripted. In 1536, Protestant victory was complete. Christian III enters Copenhagen triumphant. The Catholic bishops are imprisoned, their lands seized by the crown. The Pope's voice in Denmark is silenced. The Reformation is no longer a movement, it is the law. In 1536, the Reformation was formally implemented in Denmark. The Catholic Church is dissolved. The national church now answers to the king. The king takes over all church property, nearly a third of the kingdom's land. Monasteries are closed. Latin vanishes from the pulpit. Services are held in Danish. The clergy teach Martin Luther's small catechism to children, reshaping education so that priests and deacons become local schoolmasters. In 1550, Christian III's Bible, the first complete Danish translation, was printed. Music becomes central to worship. Congregational hymn singing spreads. The singing revolution unites the kingdom in a shared repertoire. In 1569, the first authorized hymnal was published, its use required by royal decree. Science begins to stir in this new Denmark. In 1559, a young nobleman named Tycho Brahe began his studies at the University of Copenhagen. He will go on to build astronomical instruments and map the heavens with unprecedented accuracy. By the time Christian III died in 1559, Protestantism was firmly rooted in Danish soil. His successors will inherit a united faith, but also the first signs of the conflicts that will define the next century. In 1588, Christian IV inherited the throne at just 11 years old. He ruled for almost 60 years, 1588 to 1648, the longest reign in Danish history. From 1600, Denmark expanded abroad, and Danish ships sailed to Africa's Gold Coast, present-day Ghana, building forts such as Christiansborg. More than 100,000 enslaved Africans are forcibly transported across the Atlantic to the Danish West Indies, the islands of St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John, where they labor on sugar plantations. The sugar is shipped to Copenhagen, enriching both the crown and the merchant elite. In the 1600s, under Christian IV, the first Jews arrived in Denmark, paying significant sums for residence permits. They face mixed reception but contribute to trade and finance. Christian IV's early decades are marked by an explosion of building projects, each one a testament to his ambition. Just 3 years into his reign, in 1603, Denmark's image was immortalized abroad when William Shakespeare's Hamlet, set in Kronborg Castle, was first performed in London, weaving Danish history and legend into English literature. Some of Christian IV's most notable architectural marvels include Frederiksborg Castle in Hillerød. It is a Renaissance masterpiece built to impress foreign envoys and symbolize royal authority. Rosenborg Castle. It began as a royal garden pavilion and was completed in 1634. It is filled with treasures and regalia. The Copenhagen Stock Exchange, completed in 1640, was crowned by the Dragon Spire, meant to make Copenhagen a European trading hub. The Round Tower, built in 1642, is a 200-meter spiral ramp, leading to an observatory bearing the letters RFP for Regna Firmat Pietas. Piety strengthens the realms. Christian IV's reign also reshaped the city itself. In 1631, he ordered the construction of Nyboder, 200 neat rows of terraced houses for Navy personnel, home to thousands by the 18th century. Beyond Denmark proper, he founded cities in the lands still under his crown: Kristianstad in Scania, Kristiansand in Norway, and Christiania, today's Oslo. His reign is also a cultural flowering. The first authorized hymnal from 1569 remains in use, binding the kingdom in song. Education continues to spread under Protestant oversight. But Christian IV is not only a builder, he is a warrior, and in 1625, he will gamble Denmark's future on the battlefield. In 1618, the 30 Years' War erupted in the Holy Roman Empire, a vast, bloody conflict of religion and politics. In 1625, Christian IV led Denmark into the war, aiming to defend Protestantism in Germany and secure Danish influence in the Baltic. His gamble fails. At the Battle of Lutter in 1626, his forces were decisively defeated. By 1629, the Treaty of Lübeck forced Denmark to withdraw, ceding its leadership in the Baltic to Sweden. Sweden's rise marks a dangerous shift. In 1639, the famed golden horns of Galehus were unearthed in southern Jutland, priceless relics from the 5th century, decorated with runes and figures. They were later stolen and melted down in 1802, but in Christian IV's time, they were celebrated as symbols of Denmark's ancient heritage. Meanwhile, Sweden's power grows. In 1643, without a declaration of war, Sweden invaded. The resulting conflict ended in 1645, with Denmark ceding Halland for 30 years, Gotland, and parts of Norway under the Treaty of Brömsebro. Christian IV's final years bring more loss. In 1648, he died, leaving Denmark in a deep crisis. Sweden's supremacy over the Baltic will dominate the rest of the century. Under Frederick III, Denmark attempted to reclaim lost lands. In 1657, war broke out again. Disaster follows. In the winter of 1658, Swedish King Charles X Gustav marches his army across the frozen belts, a feat that shocks Europe. The Treaty of Roskilde in 1658 was catastrophic. Scania, Halland, and Blekinge are ceded permanently. More Norwegian territory is lost. Bornholm surrendered, but that same year, its people rebelled, killed the Swedish commander, and returned the island to Danish control. Later, in 1658, Sweden tried to finish the conquest, laying siege to Copenhagen. For months, the capital holds out, aided by Dutch naval reinforcements that break the blockade. Sweden retreats, but Denmark's golden age as a Baltic power is over. By the early 1660s, Denmark was a kingdom in ruin. The disastrous wars with Sweden have drained the treasury and left the economy shattered. The public's anger falls squarely on the nobility, a class that, despite owning vast estates, pays no taxes and enjoys centuries-old privileges, including the right to elect the king and limit his power through handfæstninger, royal charters. In October 1660, King Frederick III summoned the nobles, clergy, and middle class to Copenhagen. Officially, the meeting is to discuss rebuilding the country. Unofficially, the king has a plan that will upend the political order. Frederick aligns himself with the clergy and the wealthy merchant class against the nobility. He proposes two radical changes. 1. The monarchy will become hereditary, no longer elected by the nobles. 2. The nobility will be taxed for the first time. Cornered and unpopular, the nobles agree. Within months, 1660 to 1661, Denmark was transformed into an absolute hereditary monarchy. The last handfæstning is annulled. In 1661, the Supreme Court was established as the highest judicial authority in the land, ensuring that the king's decisions and the crown's justice were final. 5 years later, in 1665, Frederick III formalized his new authority in the Kongeloven, the royal law. Unique among Europe's absolute monarchies, it is a written constitution, and it grants the king nearly unlimited power. 1. His authority comes from God alone. 2. He rules without needing consent to appoint officials, raise taxes, or pass laws. 3. He must remain Protestant, upholding the Reformation's legacy. 4. He cannot surrender his absolute power or divide the realm among heirs. The Kongeloven will remain in force until Denmark's first democratic constitution in 1849. Absolutism also fuels a royal patronage of the arts. Frederick V, a later monarch, will establish the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts to train painters, sculptors, and architects who can compete internationally, an institution that will shape Danish culture for centuries. In 1676, Danish astronomer Ole Romer made a discovery that changed science forever, proving that light travels at a finite speed. His work led, in 1700, to Denmark adopting the Gregorian calendar, replacing the Julian system for greater accuracy. That same year, Copenhagen began to change shape. 4 grand palaces rise at Amalienborg, built by noble families destined to become the royal residence. 1700 also marks the start of the Florissant period, a golden age of Danish shipping, when Copenhagen grew into a major international port. In the 18th century, playwright Ludvig Holberg, 1684 to 1754, brought Danish theater to life with 25 sharp-witted comedies, skewering nobles, peasants, and townsfolk alike. The Enlightenment spread through Denmark, bringing new ideals of reason, tolerance, and criticism of absolutism. The growing bourgeoisie begins to demand a share of political power, the first stirrings of change to come. By 1700, Denmark had been utterly transformed. The Reformation of 1536 severed ties with Rome, uniting church and state under the crown. The wars with Sweden stripped Denmark of its Baltic dominance, but also dismantled the nobility's special privileges. Absolutism, enshrined in 1665, concentrated unprecedented power in the monarch's hands. Danish is now the language of worship and governance. The Bible is in every parish. Education is tied to the Protestant faith. The king's word is law. The cross has given way to the crown. And for nearly 2 centuries, that crown will rule alone until a new age of revolution challenges kings as once they challenged popes. Denmark's story is far from over. Join us at Nearly Danish as we uncover the battles, the kings, and the moments that shaped a nation. Subscribe now and step into history.
NearlyDanish.com